2 years after burying my only daughter, I returned to the villa I had bought for her. I was stunned to see the flowers thriving, and the place looked completely different. But when I checked the cameras, I froze at what I saw. Let me back up. My name is David Brennan. I'm 53 years old, and for the last 30 years, I've been a civil engineer specializing in structural consulting. I assess buildings, design load-bearing systems, and occasionally testify in litigation when someone's deck collapses or a retaining wall fails. It's not glamorous work, but it pays well, and it taught me to notice things. Cracks in foundations, stress points, weight distribution. The little flaws that become catastrophic failures if you ignore them long enough. My daughter's name was Emma. She died 2 years ago in a car accident on Interstate 5, 3 weeks after her 24th birthday. The other driver walked away with a concussion. Emma didn't walk away at all. I bought the villa 6 months before she died. It was supposed to be a gift for her 30th birthday, a place she could escape to when the city became too much. She loved the coast. She loved the quiet. She used to say that the sound of waves was the only thing that made her brain stop spinning. The property sat on a bluff overlooking the Pacific, about 90 miles north of the city, in a town called Belmont Shores. It wasn't huge, maybe 1,800 square feet, but it had floor-to-ceiling windows in the living room, a wrap-around deck, and a path down to a private stretch of beach. The real estate agent called it a writer's retreat. Emma called it perfect. She only stayed there twice before she died. Both times were solo trips. She'd drive up on a Friday, spend the weekend reading and walking the beach, and come back Sunday night smelling like salt air and looking more like herself than she ever did in the city. After the funeral, I couldn't bring myself to go back. I paid a property management company to winterize it, shut off the utilities except for the basics, and keep an eye on things. I told them I'd deal with it eventually. Eventually became 6 months, then a year, then 2. My son, Brian, suggested I sell it multiple times. He said it was a waste of money, that I was holding on to ghosts, that Emma would have wanted me to move on. His wife, Vanessa, agreed enthusiastically. She always agreed with Brian enthusiastically, especially when the topic involved money or property or anything that might one day become an inheritance issue. I didn't sell it. I didn't visit it either. Until 3 weeks ago, when my accountant called and told me the property management company had gone out of business. No warning, no forwarding address. Just a voicemail on their office line saying they'd ceased operations effective immediately. My accountant suggested I drive up and make sure the place was still standing. I should have known something was wrong the moment I pulled into the driveway. The gravel had been raked. There were no weeds choking the flower beds. The lavender bushes flanking the front steps were blooming, healthy and purple and fragrant. Someone had swept the porch. The windows were clean. I sat in my truck for a full minute, staring at the house. Then I got out. The key still worked. The door swung open smoothly, no sticking, no squealing hinges. I stepped inside and stopped. The air smelled like lemon cleaner and something else. Coffee, maybe. Fresh coffee. The hardwood floors gleamed. The furniture, all the pieces I'd chosen with Emma, had been rearranged. The couch faced the window now instead of the fireplace. There was a new rug under the coffee table, something geometric and modern that I'd never seen before. On the kitchen counter, there was a vase of fresh flowers. Sunflowers. Emma hated sunflowers. She said they were too aggressively cheerful. I walked through the house slowly, cataloging the changes. The bathroom had new towels, cream-colored instead of the blue ones I'd bought. The medicine cabinet held toothpaste, dental floss, a bottle of ibuprofen, and a half-empty container of face moisturizer. The bedroom, Emma's bedroom, had been stripped of her things. The quilt her grandmother made was gone. The framed photo of her and me at the Grand Canyon, gone. The bookshelf she'd spent an entire weekend assembling, gone. In their place, a king-size bed with a white duvet, a minimalist nightstand, a closet full of women's clothes, sizes that didn't match Emma's, and a row of men's shoes on the floor. I stood in the doorway for a long time, trying to make sense of it. Squatters, maybe. But squatters don't deep clean. They don't bring fresh flowers. They don't install new rugs. Then I remembered the security system. I'd had it installed 2 months before Emma died. She'd been nervous about staying in the house alone, so I'd paid for a full setup. Cameras covering the driveway, the front porch, the back deck, and the interior common areas. Motion sensors, cloud storage, the works. The property management company was supposed to have access in case of emergencies, but I'd kept the master admin login. I pulled out my phone and opened the app. It took 3 tries to log in. I'd forgotten the password and had to reset it. When the dashboard finally loaded, I saw the camera grid. 6 feeds, all active. I scrolled back through the recorded footage, starting with today. Empty house, then yesterday. Still empty. I kept scrolling. A week ago. 2 weeks, a month. Then I saw it. a car pulling into the driveway. I recognized it immediately. Brian's black Audi, the one Vanessa had insisted he lease even though the monthly payment was obscene. The driver's side door opened and Brian stepped out. He was wearing a polo shirt and khaki shorts, the kind of aggressively casual outfit he wore when he wanted to look approachable. Vanessa climbed out of the passenger side. She was in a sundress, oversized sunglasses perched on her head. They walked up to the house like they owned it. I watched them unlock the front door. I watched them carry in suitcases. I watched Brian give Vanessa a tour, pointing out the windows, the deck, the view. I watched Vanessa laugh at something he said. I scrolled back further. 3 months ago, Brian and Vanessa again, this time with another couple I didn't recognize. They were grilling on the back deck, drinking wine, toasting each other. Vanessa had her feet propped up on the railing, her head tilted back in the sun. 6 months ago, Brian alone this time, letting in a contractor. They walked through the house together, the contractor taking notes on a tablet. 9 months ago, Vanessa directing 2 movers as they hauled out Emma's furniture and replaced it with the new bed, the new nightstand, the new rug. I kept scrolling. The timestamps went back a year. 14 months, 18 months. They'd been using the house for over a year and a half. I sat down on the floor, still holding my phone, staring at the screen. My hands were shaking. They'd been here, in Emma's house, sleeping in her room, entertaining their friends, redecorating, erasing her. And I'd had no idea. I thought about calling Brian. I thought about getting in my truck, driving back to the city, and showing up at his condo to ask him what the hell he thought he was doing. But I didn't. Instead, I watched more footage. I watched Brian and Vanessa hosting dinner parties. I watched them bring friends I'd never met, people who laughed too loud and drank too much. I watched Vanessa try on clothes in front of the bedroom mirror, clothes that had probably belonged to Emma. I watched Brian walking around shirtless, talking on his phone, gesturing like he was closing some big deal. I watched them treat the house like a vacation rental they'd gotten for free. There was one clip, dated 4 months ago, that made me pause the playback. Brian and Vanessa were sitting on the couch, the one I'd chosen with Emma. They were talking, their voices low enough that the camera didn't pick up the words. Then Vanessa said something, louder this time, and laughed. Brian laughed too, shaking his head. Then he said, clear as day, Dad won't even notice. He hasn't been here in 2 years. Vanessa leaned against him. Exactly. It's not like he's using it. I replayed that part 3 times. The sun was setting by the time I finished watching the footage. The living room had gone dark except for the glow from my phone screen. I stood up slowly, my knees stiff, and walked to the window. The ocean stretched out in front of me, black and endless. I thought about Emma. I thought about the last time I'd seen her, 3 weeks before the accident. We'd had dinner at a Thai place near her apartment. She'd been stressed about work, about money, about the future. I'd told her not to worry, that I'd take care of her, that the villa would always be there if she needed a break. She'd smiled at me. You're too good to me, Dad. I pressed my forehead against the glass. Brian had been at the funeral. He'd cried. He'd given a speech about how much he loved his sister, how she'd always been the better person, how he wished he'd spent more time with her. Vanessa had held his hand and dabbed at her eyes with a tissue. 2 months later, they'd been here, rearranging furniture. I pulled my phone back out and opened the security app again. This time, I wasn't looking at old footage. I was looking at the settings. The system had 12 camera feeds, but only 6 were showing up in my dashboard. I scrolled through the device list and found the others. They'd been disabled. Recently, within the last month, I re-enabled them. One by one, the feeds blinked to life. 2 new angles on the driveway, one covering the path to the beach, one inside the garage, one in the laundry room, one in the bedroom. I cycled through the new feeds, checking the recent footage. The bedroom camera showed Brian and Vanessa 2 days ago. They were packing suitcases, moving quickly, talking in low voices. Vanessa kept checking her phone. Brian looked annoyed. Then he said, loud enough for the camera to catch, "We need to wrap this up before he decides to visit." Vanessa zipped her suitcase. "He's not going to visit. Like, he never visits." Brian stopped and looked at her. "What if he does?" She shrugged. "Then we'll deal with it." I saved the clip. Then I went through the rest of the footage systematically, downloading everything. 18 months of recordings, parties, renovations, casual theft, my son and his wife treating my daughter's house like their personal playground. When I finished, it was after midnight. I sat on the couch, the same couch they'd been sitting on, and stared at the ceiling. I wasn't angry yet. That would come later. Right now, I just felt cold, detached, like I was looking at a blueprint and noticing a flaw in the design, something structural, something that couldn't be ignored. I thought about Brian as a kid. The way he used to follow Emma around, imitating everything she did. The way he'd cried when she left for college. The way he'd asked me 6 months after the funeral if I thought Emma would have wanted him to have her car. I'd said no. He'd stopped asking. I pulled out my phone and opened my contacts. Brian's name was near the top. I stared at it for a long time, then I put the phone away. I wasn't going to call him, not yet. Not until I understood exactly what I was looking at. Not until I had a plan. I stood up and walked to the window again. The ocean was still there, black and vast. The sound of the waves was faint through the glass, a low rhythmic hiss. Emma used to say the ocean made her feel small in a good way, like her problems didn't matter as much when she could see something that big and old and indifferent. I wondered what she'd think if she could see this. Her brother sleeping in her bed, her things erased, her father standing in the dark, trying to decide what to do next. I stayed at the villa that night. I didn't sleep. I sat on the couch and cycled through the security footage again, taking notes this time. Dates, times, faces, patterns. By the time the sun came up, I had a list, and I had a plan. Before we continue, hit the hype button, subscribe, and like the video to help the channel grow. Tell us which city you are from in the comments. We'd love to get to know our audience better. I drove back to the city the next morning. The highway was empty except for a few trucks and early commuters. I kept the radio off. I didn't want the distraction. My condo was in a mid-rise downtown, the kind of building where everyone nods at each other in the elevator, but nobody knows anyone's name. I'd moved there 6 months after Emma died, after the house I'd shared with my late wife started feeling like a museum. Too many rooms, too many memories. The condo was fine, sterile, but fine. It had a view of a parking garage and a decent kitchen I never used. I kept my office there, a converted second bedroom with my laptop, filing cabinets, and a desk I'd salvaged from a job site 20 years ago. It was scratched and ugly, and the only piece of furniture in the place I actually liked. I made coffee and sat down at the desk. Then I opened my laptop and started working. First, I pulled up the property records for the villa. I'd bought it outright, no mortgage. Title was in my name, no co-signers. The property management company was listed as the authorized agent for maintenance and emergencies, but their authority had been limited. They couldn't lease it, they couldn't sell it, they couldn't alter it without written approval, which meant Brian and Vanessa had no legal right to be there. I cross-referenced the security footage timestamps with my bank statements. The property management company had been billing me monthly until they went under. Utilities, landscaping, routine inspections. Everything looked normal. No red flags. No indication that anyone else had been accessing the property, which meant they'd been careful, or they'd assumed I'd never check. I leaned back in my chair and thought about Brian. He was 31. He'd been married to Vanessa for 4 years. He worked in sales for a tech startup that sold software to hospitals, something to do with patient management systems. He was good at it. He made decent money, or at least he said he did. But he and Vanessa spent more than they made. The leased Audi, the condo in a trendy neighborhood they couldn't quite afford, the vacations to Cabo and Napa and God knows where else. They were always 1 month away from broke, and they acted like it was a lifestyle choice. I'd bailed Brian out twice in the last 5 years. Once when he'd gotten behind on his car payments, once when Vanessa had maxed out their credit cards on furniture for their place. Both times he'd promised to pay me back. Both times he hadn't. After Emma died, he'd asked me if I'd updated my will. I told him it wasn't his business. He'd dropped it, but I'd seen the look on his face, like I'd insulted him. I pulled up the security footage again and scrolled to a clip from 8 months ago. Brian and Vanessa were on the back deck, grilling steaks. Another couple was with them, mid-30s, expensively dressed. The woman had that polished look Vanessa always aspired to, perfect hair and perfect skin, and a laugh that sounded like wind chimes. The 4 of them were drinking wine, standing around the grill. Brian was talking, gesturing with his free hand. Then the other man, the one I didn't recognize, said something and everyone laughed. I turned up the volume. The audio was faint, but I could make out most of it. The other man. So how'd you score this place? Brian, grinning. Family property. My dad's not using it, so we figured why let it sit empty? Vanessa, leaning against the railing. We're basically doing him a favor, keeping it maintained. The other man. Nice. You guys subletting it or what? Brian. Nah, man. Just using it when we need a break from the city. It's like our little secret. The woman. Your dad doesn't mind? Vanessa. He doesn't know. More laughter. Brian refilled everyone's glasses. I paused the video. I sat there for a long time, staring at the frozen frame. Brian's face, mid-laugh. Vanessa's hand on the railing. The other couple, smiling like they were in on the joke. Then I saved the clip and moved on. Over the next 2 hours, I went through every piece of footage that showed Brian or Vanessa with other people, dinner parties, weekend getaways, casual visits. I made a list of everyone I could identify. Most of them were strangers, but a few were familiar. Brian's coworkers, Vanessa's yoga instructor, a guy I recognized as Brian's old college roommate. I made note of every conversation I could hear, every offhand comment about the house, every joke about me. There were a lot of jokes. In one clip, dated 6 months ago, Vanessa was showing the house to a friend I didn't recognize. They were walking through the living room, Vanessa pointing out the windows, the deck, the view. The friend, "This place is amazing. How much did it cost?" Vanessa, "No idea. David bought it for Emma. He's got more money than he knows what to do with." The friend, "Emma?" Vanessa, "Brian's sister. She died a couple years ago. Car accident." The friend, "Oh my God, that's awful." Vanessa shrugging, "Yeah, it sucked, but at least we get to use the house now." I replayed that part twice. Then I closed the laptop and went for a walk. The city was loud and crowded, and exactly what I didn't want, but I walked anyway. I needed to think. I needed to move. I kept replaying the footage in my head, the laughter, the casual cruelty, like it was an inconvenience that had ultimately worked out in her favor. I thought about confronting them, driving to their condo, knocking on the door, and asking them what the hell they thought they were doing. But that would be a mistake. If I confronted them now, they'd have time to prepare. They'd come up with excuses, they'd twist it around, make me the bad guy for abandoning the property. They'd apologize and promise to stop and act like it was all a misunderstanding. And then they'd go right back to doing it, just more carefully. No. If I was going to do this, I needed to do it right. I needed leverage. I got back to the condo around noon and spent the rest of the day digging. I pulled up Brian's social media accounts. He posted constantly, mostly photos of him and Vanessa at restaurants, bars, events. A lot of the recent posts were geotagged. I cross-referenced the locations with the security footage. 3 weeks ago, Brian had posted a photo of himself and Vanessa on the villa's back deck, drinks in hand, sunset in the background. The caption read, "Needed this. Nam blessed yaksh weekend vibes." 2 months ago, another post. This one showed Vanessa doing yoga on the beach below the house. The caption, "My wife is a goddess." Lucky F. 4 months ago, a group photo on the villa's front porch. Brian and Vanessa and 6 other people I didn't recognize. The caption, "Best crew, best weekend, Dios squad goals." He'd been documenting the whole thing, publicly, like he didn't think I'd ever see it, or like he didn't care. I saved every post, screenshots, links, metadata. Then I pulled up the property management company's records. The company, Shoreline Property Services, had been in business for 12 years. They'd managed about 24 properties in the area, mostly vacation rentals and second homes. According to their website, which was still live, they'd prided themselves on discreet, professional care for your most valuable assets. I found the owner's name in the business registry, Alan Pritchard. A quick search pulled up his LinkedIn profile, his Facebook, and an obituary. Alan Pritchard had died 3 months ago. Heart attack. He was 62. The business had shut down 2 weeks later. I sat back and stared at the screen. So the property management company had collapsed because the owner died. That explained why I hadn't been notified. But it didn't explain how Brian and Vanessa had gotten access in the first place. I pulled up the footage again and scrolled back to the earliest clip of them at the house. 18 months ago. Brian was letting himself in with a key. I didn't give him a key. I'd given one to the property management company. I'd kept one for myself. That was it, which meant either Brian had copied the property management company's key or someone had given it to him. I opened a new browser tab and searched for Alan Pritchard's contact info. His personal cell number was listed on his LinkedIn profile, along with an email address. I called the number. It went straight to voicemail. The email bounced back as undeliverable. I leaned back in my chair and rubbed my eyes. Then I thought about the contractor. I pulled up the footage from 6 months ago. Brian letting in a man with a tablet, the two of them walking through the house together. The contractor had been wearing a polo shirt with a logo on the chest. I zoomed in on the frame and enhanced it as much as the app would allow. The logo was partially visible, a stylized house with a tree growing through it. Below the image, 2 words, a greenfield, and something else I couldn't make out. I ran a search for Greenfield Contractors Belmont Shores. 3 results. 1 was a landscaping company. 1 was a custom home builder. The 3rd was a general contractor called Greenfield Renovations, based about 15 miles inland from the villa. I clicked on their website. The homepage had photos of remodeled kitchens, new decks, backyard studios. At the bottom, there was a contact form and a phone number. I called. A woman answered on the second ring. "Greenfield Renovations. This is Jen." "Hi," I said. "I'm calling about a project you might have done about 6 months ago. Property in Belmont Shores, coastal villa, some interior updates." "Sure," she said. "Can I get the address?" I gave it to her. There was a pause. I heard typing. "Okay, yeah, I've got it," she said. "That was a smaller job. Bedroom furniture swap, some paint touch-ups. Are you the property owner?" "I am," I said. "I'm trying to get some records for my files. Who authorized the work?" More typing. "Looks like it was authorized by Brian Brennan. Is that you?" "That's my son," I said. "And he paid for it?" Yeah, paid in full, actually. Credit card. Want me to email you the invoice?" "That'd be great," I said. She took down my email and hung up. 2 minutes later, the invoice appeared in my inbox. It was dated 6 months ago. Total cost, $4,000. Paid by Brian Brennan, Visa ending in 7743. I stared at the screen. $4,000. For furniture and paint. In a house he didn't own. Using money he didn't have. I thought about the credit card debt he'd racked up, the car payments, the lifestyle he couldn't afford, and then I thought about the villa, the perfect weekend getaway, the Instagram backdrop, the free vacation rental. He wasn't just using the house, he was investing in it, improving it, making it his. I closed the laptop and sat in the dark for a while. Then I opened it again and started a new document. I titled it Timeline. I began filling it in, every visit, every renovation, every social media post, every conversation I'd overheard on the security footage. It took me 4 hours. By the time I finished, it was almost midnight. My coffee had gone cold. My neck ached. But I had something. I had a pattern. Brian and Vanessa had started using the house 18 months ago, shortly after the second time I'd bailed Brian out financially. They'd been careful at first, only visiting once every few months. Then it escalated. By 6 months ago, they were there almost every other weekend. They'd started bringing friends. They'd started renovating. And 3 months ago, right after Alan Pritchard died, they'd started talking about next steps. I pulled up a clip from 2 months ago. Brian and Vanessa were sitting on the couch, laptops open, papers spread out on the coffee table. They were talking in low voices, but the camera picked up most of it. Vanessa: "If we list it as a short-term rental, we could make, what, $3,000 a month? More in summer?" Brian: "Probably, but we'd have to be careful. If Dad finds out?" Vanessa: "He's not going to find out. He hasn't been here in 2 years. He's not even paying attention." Brian: "What if he sells it?" Vanessa: "Then we're screwed. But he won't. He's too sentimental. It was Emma's place." A long pause. Brian: "Maybe we should just ask him. Tell him we want to use it. Make it official." Vanessa laughing: "Are you serious? He'd say no. You know he would." Brian: "Maybe not. If we framed it right." Vanessa: "Brian, he'd say no. Stop being naive." Another pause. Brian: "Fine. Then we keep doing what we're doing. But if he ever asks, you're the one who explains it." Vanessa: "Deal." I saved the clip, then I stood up and paced the room. They'd been planning to rent it out, to strangers, to turn my daughter's house into a side hustle. I thought about calling Brian right then, driving to his condo, banging on the door, dragging him out into the hallway, and making him explain himself. But I didn't. Instead, I sat back down and opened the security app. I scrolled to the live feeds. All 12 cameras were active now. I cycled through them one by one. The villa was empty, dark. The motion sensors hadn't been triggered in 2 days. I checked Brian's social media. His most recent post was from this morning. A photo of him and Vanessa at some brunch spot in the city. The caption: "Sundays are for mimosas." They thought they were safe. They thought I didn't know. I smiled for the first time in days. Then I opened a new note on my phone and started making a list. I stayed at the villa for the rest of the weekend. I didn't plan to. But after Brian left, I couldn't bring myself to get in the truck and drive back to the city. So I stayed. I spent Saturday night going through the house again, this time more carefully. I opened every drawer, every closet, every cabinet. I was looking for anything they might have left behind, any trace that needed to be erased. In the garage, I found the garbage bags I'd filled with Vanessa's clothes and Brian's shoes. They were still sitting in the corner where I'd tossed them. I dragged them out to the curb and left them for the trash pickup on Monday. In the bathroom, I found a bottle of Vanessa's shampoo tucked under the sink. Expensive stuff. French label. I dumped it down the drain and threw the bottle away. In the kitchen, I found half a bottle of wine in the fridge, some organic label I didn't recognize. I poured it out and recycled the bottle. By Sunday morning, the house was clean. No trace of them left. I made coffee and sat on the deck, watching the waves. The ocean was calm, the sky was clear. It was the kind of morning Emma would have loved. I thought about her, about the last conversation we'd had before she died. She'd been stressed about work, some project that wasn't going well. I'd told her to take a break, to come up to the villa for a few days, to unplug. She'd said she would, but she never got the chance. I finished my coffee and went back inside. I checked the security app. No new alerts, no sign of Brian or Vanessa. I scrolled through the footage again, not looking for anything specific, just watching, trying to understand what had happened, how it had gone so wrong. Then I saw something I hadn't noticed before. It was a clip from 6 months ago. Brian and Vanessa on the couch, laptops open, papers spread out. I'd watched this one before. It was the conversation where they talked about renting the house out. But this time, I noticed something in the background. On the coffee table, half hidden under the papers, there was a document. I paused the video and zoomed in. It was hard to make out, but I could see a letterhead, Coastal Realty Group, and below that, some kind of form. Boxes, lines, signatures. I enhanced the image as much as the app would allow. The text was blurry, but I could make out a few words. Rental agreement. Term, 6 months. Monthly rate, $3,200. I stared at the screen. They'd already drawn up a rental agreement. They hadn't just talked about renting the house out. They'd actually started the process. I rewound the footage and watched the conversation again. This time, I paid closer attention to what they were saying. Vanessa. If we listed as a short-term rental, we could make, $3,000 a month? Brian. Probably, but we'd have to be careful. If Dad finds out? Vanessa. He's not going to find out. I paused the video. Then I went back to the coffee table and looked at the document again. The date on the form was smudged, but I could make out part of it. April something, 6 months ago. I opened a new browser tab and searched for Coastal Realty Group. Their website came up, a local property management company specializing in vacation rentals. I clicked through to their listings page and scrolled through the properties. Nothing looked familiar. No mention of the villa. I pulled out my phone and called the number listed on the website. A woman answered. Coastal Realty, this is Jessica. Hi, I said. I'm calling about a property in Belmont Shores. I think someone might have listed it with you about 6 months ago. Can you check your records? Sure. What's the address? I gave it to her. There was a pause. I heard typing. Okay, yeah, I've got something here. But the listing was never finalized. It was pulled before it went live. Pulled by who? Looks like it was the person who submitted it. Let me see. Brian Brennan. Is that you? That's my son. Another pause. Oh, okay. Well, yeah, he submitted the property for listing, but then he called back a couple weeks later and said he needed to cancel. We refunded his setup fee, and that was it. Did he say why he was canceling? No, just said the timing wasn't right. When was this? Let me check. Looks like he submitted the listing in early April and canceled in late April. So, yeah, about 6 months ago. Thanks, I said. I hung up. So they'd tried to rent it out. They'd gone as far as contacting a property management company and filling out the paperwork. But then they'd backed out. Why? I pulled up the security footage again and scrolled forward. Late April. What happened then? I found a clip dated April 23rd. Brian and Vanessa were in the living room, arguing. Their voices were raised. I turned up the volume. Brian. I told you, it's too risky. If he finds out? Vanessa. He's not going to find out. We've been over this. Brian. What if he sells the place? What if he decides to visit? Vanessa. He won't. He hasn't been here in over a year. He doesn't care. Brian. You don't know that. Vanessa. Yes, I do. He's checked out, Brian. He's been checked out since Emma died. A long pause. Brian. I still think we should wait. Just a few more months. Make sure he's really not paying attention. Vanessa. Fine. But we're not canceling forever. We're just postponing. Brian. Okay. I saved the clip. So they'd pulled the listing because Brian got cold feet. He'd been worried I might find out. But Vanessa had pushed back. She'd wanted to move forward. I wondered how long they would have waited before trying again. I closed the laptop and sat back. The thing that kept bothering me was how casual it all was. The way they talked about the house, the way they talked about me. like I was an obstacle to work around, not a person, like I didn't matter. I thought about the cease and desist letter, about Brian's reaction, the anger, the defensiveness, the half-hearted apology. He still didn't get it. Neither did Vanessa. They thought this was about the house, about property rights, about me being petty and unreasonable. But it wasn't about the house, it was about Emma. It was about the fact that they'd taken the one place that was hers, the one place I'd bought for her, and turned it into their personal playground, and they'd done it without a second thought. I stood up and walked to the bedroom. Emma's room. I stood in the doorway and looked at the quilt on the bed, the books on the shelf, the photo on the wall. I thought about her, about the way she used to sit cross-legged on that bed, reading for hours, about the way she'd smile when she saw the ocean, about the way she'd call me after a weekend here, her voice lighter, happier. And I thought about Brian sleeping in this room, Vanessa trying on Emma's clothes, their friends laughing and drinking and filling this space with noise. I felt something shift in my chest, something cold and hard. I pulled out my phone and opened the security app. I scrolled through the contacts until I found the one I was looking for. Greenfield Renovations. Jen, I called. She answered on the second ring. Greenfield Renovations. Hi, Jen. It's David Brennan. We've spoken a couple times about the Belmont Shores property. Oh, hey, what's up? I wanted to ask you something. When Brian hired you for the renovation work, did he mention anything else? Any other plans for the property? A pause. Like what? Like renting it out, or making other changes. Not that I remember. He just said he wanted to update the bedroom and do some touch-ups. Why? Just curious. Did he seem like he was planning to stay there long-term? I mean, he didn't say. But he asked about durable materials, stuff that would hold up with heavy use. So maybe? Heavy use. Yeah. Like he asked about the best type of paint for high-traffic areas. And he wanted to know if the furniture we were swapping in would be sturdy enough for, I don't know, guests or something. I nodded slowly. Okay, thanks. No problem. Everything okay? Yeah, just tying up some loose ends. I hung up, so they'd been planning for guests, for heavy use, for turning the house into something more than just a personal getaway. They'd been planning to profit from it. I sat on the edge of Emma's bed and stared at the wall. Then I made a decision. Monday morning, I drove back to the city. I had work to do, not at the office, at home. I spent the day going through every financial record I had, bank statements, credit card bills, investment accounts, the property deed, Emma's will, everything. I was looking for leverage. By the end of the day, I had a list. Brian had borrowed money from me twice. Once for the car payments, once for the credit card debt. Both times, he'd signed promissory notes agreeing to pay me back within 2 years. Both notes were past due. Neither had been repaid. Total owed $47,000. I also had the documentation for the villa, the purchase records, the property taxes I'd paid, the maintenance costs, the security system, everything. Total invested in the property over the last 5 years, $230,000. I opened a new spreadsheet and started calculating. If Brian and Vanessa had rented the house out at $3,000 a month, and if they'd been using it themselves for 18 months, the value of their unauthorized use came to approximately $54,000. Add in the contractor work they'd paid for without permission, $4,000. Add in the wear and tear, the cleaning costs, the lock replacements, another $2,000. Total damages, $60,000. I leaned back and looked at the numbers. $60,000. That was what they owed me, but this wasn't about the money. I closed the spreadsheet and opened a new document. This one was different. It was a plan, not a legal plan. Paul had already helped me with that. The cease and desist letter was sent. The property was secured. Legally, I was covered. This was something else. This was about making sure Brian and Vanessa understood what they'd done, not just intellectually, but emotionally, viscerally. I wanted them to feel what I felt when I saw that security footage. The betrayal, the anger, the grief. I wanted them to lose something. I started writing. Step 1. Cut off financial support. Brian had been relying on me as a safety net his entire adult life. Every time he got in trouble, I bailed him out. That was done. Step 2. Isolation. Brian's social circle was built on the image he projected. The successful sales guy. The guy with the beach house. The guy who had it all figured out. I was going to dismantle that image. Step 3. Exposure. Not public, not cruel. Just enough to make sure the people who mattered knew the truth, his friends, his coworkers, Vanessa's family. Step 4. Let them come to me. Let them realize they'd burned the one bridge they couldn't afford to lose. I read through the plan 3 times. Then I saved it and closed the laptop. I spent the next week executing step 1. Brian called me 4 times. I didn't answer. He left voicemails. I deleted them. He sent emails. I read them, but didn't respond. Most of them were the same. Apologies, excuses, promises to do better. One of them was different. It was short, just 2 lines. Dad, I need to talk to you about money. It's urgent. Please call me. I deleted it. 2 days later, he tried a different approach. He showed up at my office. I was in a meeting when the receptionist buzzed me. Mr. Brennan, your son is here to see you. I excused myself and stepped into the hallway. Brian was standing by the elevators, looking uncomfortable. He was in a suit, work clothes. He looked tired. What are you doing here? I asked. I need to talk to you. I'm working. Dad, please, just 5 minutes. I looked at him for a long moment. Then I nodded toward a small conference room. In there. We walked in and I closed the door. Brian sat down. I stayed standing. What do you want? I asked. I need your help. With what? He hesitated. Money. I'm in a bind. I've got some bills coming due and I'm short. I was hoping you could... No. He blinked. What? No, I'm not lending you money. Dad, I'm serious. I'm going to get evicted if I don't make rent this month. Then make rent. I can't. I'm tapped out. Vanessa lost her job last month and... That's not my problem. He stared at me. Are you serious right now? Completely. Dad, I'm your son. And you're a 31-year-old man who's been living beyond his means for years. I've bailed you out twice. I'm not doing it again. This is because of the house, isn't it? This is because you've never faced a real consequence in your life. He stood up. So what? You're just going to let me lose my apartment? Let me and Vanessa end up on the street? You're not going to end up on the street. You're going to figure it out. Get a second job, sell the car, downsize, do what everyone else does when they can't afford their lifestyle. You're unbelievable. I'm done enabling you. He looked at me like I'd slapped him. Then he turned and walked out, slamming the door behind him. I stood there for a minute, listening to his footsteps fade down the hallway, then I went back to the meeting. That night, I got a call from Vanessa. I let it go to voicemail. She left a long message. Angry, accusatory. She said I was being cruel, that I was punishing Brian for a mistake, that I was a terrible father. I deleted it. The next day, I got a text from Brian's old college roommate, Tyler. I'd met him a few times over the years. He was one of the people who'd been to the villa. Hey, Mr. Brennan. Brian mentioned you guys are going through a rough patch. Just wanted to say I hope you work it out. He's a good guy. I didn't respond. 2 days later, I got another message. This one was from Lauren, the woman who'd posted the album of photos from the villa. Hi, David. I heard you and Brian aren't speaking. I just wanted to reach out and say I'm sorry if my visit to the house caused any problems. I didn't know there was an issue. Hope you're doing okay. I thanked her and left it at that. Over the next week, I started hearing from more people. Friends of Brian's, co-workers, even Vanessa's sister, who sent me a long email about family and forgiveness. I didn't respond to any of them, but I took note of who reached out, and what they said, and how they framed the situation. Most of them thought I was overreacting, that I was being vindictive, that I needed to let it go and move on. A few of them seemed to understand, or at least they asked questions. They wanted to know my side. I filed all of it away. Then I moved on to step 2. Brian's social media presence was extensive. Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn. He posted constantly. Photos of him and Vanessa at restaurants. Updates about work wins. Inspirational quotes. The usual performative nonsense. A lot of his posts were tied to the villa. Sunset photos. Beach walks. Weekend getaways. He'd built an entire persona around it. I started going through his posts systematically, looking for anything that could be used against him. I found plenty. In one post from 4 months ago, he'd written, "Grateful for the little things, like having a place to escape when life gets crazy." The photo showed him and Vanessa on the villa's deck, drinks in hand. In another post from 6 months ago, "Sometimes you just need to unplug. Lucky to have a spot where I can do that." Another deck photo, and a third post from 8 months ago. "Good friends, good wine, good views. What else do you need?" A group photo, 6 people I didn't recognize, all holding glasses, all smiling at the camera. I screenshotted every post, then I started drafting messages. The first one went to Tyler, the college roommate. "Hey Tyler, thanks for reaching out. I appreciate it. Just wanted to clarify something. You mentioned Brian's a good guy. I agree. But I'm curious. Did he ever tell you how he got access to the beach house you visited? I sent it. Tyler responded an hour later. Not really. I just assumed it was a family place. Why? Just curious. Did he mention that the property belonged to his late sister, or that I didn't know he was using it? A long pause. Then, no, he didn't mention that. Okay, just wanted to make sure you had the full picture. I moved on to the next person, Lauren, the woman who'd posted the album. Hi, Lauren. Thanks for your message. I wanted to follow up on something. When you visited the house, did Brian mention that it was originally purchased for his sister, who passed away 2 years ago? She responded quickly. No, he didn't. Oh my God, I'm so sorry. I had no idea. It's okay, you didn't know. But I wanted you to understand why this has been difficult for me. Of course, I completely understand. I'm really sorry. I sent similar messages to 3 other people. Each time the response was the same. Shock, apologies, a shift in tone. By the end of the week, I'd quietly dismantled the narrative Brian had been building. The idea that he was just a guy using a family property. The idea that I was overreacting. Now, people knew the truth, and they were talking. I knew because I started seeing changes. Subtle ones. Comments on Brian's posts that were more cautious. Fewer likes. Fewer shares. One of his friends posted a vague status update. It's wild how much you don't know about people. Another one commented on a photo of Brian and Vanessa. Hope everything's okay, man? Brian didn't respond to either. I watched it all from a distance, saying nothing, doing nothing, just letting the truth do the work. 3 weeks after I sent the cease and desist letter, Brian showed up at the villa. I wasn't there. But the security system alerted me the moment he pulled into the driveway. I was at my condo, sitting at my desk, when my phone buzzed. I opened the app and saw the notification. Motion detected. Front gate. I pulled up the live feed. Brian's Audi was idling at the gate. He was in the driver's seat, alone. He tried the gate code once, twice, 3 times. The gate stayed closed. He sat there for a minute, staring at the keypad. Then he got out of the car. I watched as he walked up to the gate and looked through the bars. He was holding his phone, probably checking for a signal. Then he made a call. My phone rang. Brian's name appeared on the screen. I didn't answer. He hung up and tried again. I let it ring through to voicemail. On the live feed, Brian shoved his phone in his pocket and walked back to the gate. He stood there for a long moment, hands on the bars, looking up the driveway toward the house. Then he started climbing. I sat up straighter, watching the screen. He got about halfway up the gate before his foot slipped. He caught himself, repositioned, and kept climbing. At the top, he swung one leg over, then the other, and dropped down on the other side. He landed awkwardly, stumbling forward. Then he straightened up and started walking toward the house. I switched to the porch camera. He was moving quickly, his jaw tight, his hands balled into fists. He reached the front door and pounded on it. Dad, I know you're in there. Open the door. He waited. No response. He pounded again. Dad, come on. We need to talk. He tried the doorknob. Locked. He stepped back and looked up at the windows. Then he pulled out his phone and called again. I still didn't answer. He left a voicemail. I played it on speaker. Dad, I'm at the house. I need to talk to you. I know you're pissed. I get it. But this has gone too far. You can't just cut me off like this. I'm your son. Call me back. He hung up and walked around to the back of the house. I switched to the deck camera. He climbed the steps and tried the sliding glass door. Also locked. He rattled it a few times, then gave up. He stood on the deck for a while, looking out at the ocean. His shoulders sagged. He looked defeated. Then he turned around and walked back to the front of the house. I switched cameras again. He was standing on the porch, staring at the door. He pulled out his phone and typed something. A moment later, I got a text. Please, Dad, just talk to me. I watched him on the screen. He looked small, desperate. I didn't respond. He waited for 5 minutes. Then he walked back down the driveway, climbed over the gate, and drove away. I replayed the footage 3 times. Then I saved it. That night, Vanessa called me. I answered. What the hell is wrong with you? She said. Excuse me? Brian went to the house today. You locked him out. He called you a dozen times. You ignored him. What are you trying to prove? I'm not trying to prove anything. Then what is this? Some kind of power trip? This is me enforcing boundaries. Boundaries? He's your son. And he broke into my property today. I have it on camera. Do you want me to press charges? A pause. You wouldn't. Try me. She was silent for a long moment. Then she said, "You know what? You're a miserable old man. You've been miserable since Emma died, and now you're taking it out on Brian because you can't deal with your own grief. Are you done?" "No, I'm not. You need to hear this. Emma's gone. She's not coming back. And sitting in that stupid house, pretending like it's some kind of shrine, isn't going to change that. Brian was trying to help. He was trying to keep it alive. And instead of being grateful, you're treating him like a criminal. He is a criminal. He trespassed. He stole. He lied. He made a mistake. He made a choice. God, you're impossible. Vanessa, let me make something very clear. Brian doesn't get to come back to that house, ever. Neither do you. If I see either of you on the property again, I'll have you arrested. Are we clear?" "You're insane." "Are we clear?" She hung up. I put the phone down and stared at the wall. Then I opened my laptop and started working on step 3. I pulled up the list of people who'd been to the villa, 32 names, some I knew, most I didn't. I cross-referenced them with Brian's social media, looking for connections, friends, co-workers, mutual acquaintances. Then I started reaching out. Not directly, that would have been too obvious. Instead, I used proxies, anonymous messages, throwaway email accounts, carefully worded questions designed to plant seeds of doubt. To one of Brian's co-workers, "Hey, quick question. I heard Brian has a beach house in Belmont Shores. Is that his place or his family's?" To one of Vanessa's yoga friends, "Random, but do you know how Brian and Vanessa got access to that villa they've been posting about? I thought it belonged to his late sister." To Tyler, the college roommate, "Hey man, I've been thinking about what you said. Do you think Brian was honest with you about the house?" I sent a dozen messages over the course of a week. Most people didn't respond, but a few did, and the ones who did started asking questions. I watched the ripple effect, conversations happening in comments sections, private messages being exchanged, people comparing notes. Brian's carefully constructed image was starting to crack, and then, 2 weeks later, something happened that I didn't expect. Brian lost his job. I didn't find out from him. I found out from LinkedIn. His profile was updated. His job title was gone. His status was set to open to work. I clicked through to his timeline. There was a post from 3 days ago. "Sometimes life throws you curveballs. Taking some time to figure out my next move. If you know of any opportunities, let me know." The comments were full of generic sympathy. "Sorry to hear that, man. You'll land on your feet. Let me know if I can help." But there were also a few comments that were more pointed. One from a former coworker. "Heard it was a performance issue. Hope you're doing okay." Another from someone I didn't recognize. "Guess the beach house won't be an option anymore, huh?" I read through the comments slowly. Then I opened a new tab and searched for Brian's company. Tech startup, patient management software. I found their website and clicked through to the news section. There was a press release from 2 weeks ago. Layoffs. 20% of the workforce. Cost-cutting measures. Brian had been part of the layoffs. I sat back and thought. He'd lost his job, which meant he'd lost his income, which meant he and Vanessa were in serious trouble, and I'd just cut off his safety net. I should have felt guilty, but I didn't. I felt nothing. I closed the laptop and went to bed. The next morning, I got a call from Paul. "David, we need to talk." "About what?" "Your son. He contacted me yesterday. He's threatening to sue you." I sat up. "For what?" "Emotional distress, alienation. He's claiming you've been harassing him and sabotaging his relationships." "That's absurd." "Maybe, but he's serious. He's got a lawyer. They're drafting a complaint. Let them." "David, I haven't done anything illegal, Paul. I've enforced my property rights. That's it." "What about the messages you've been sending to his friends?" I paused. "What messages?" "Don't play dumb. Brian says you've been reaching out to people, spreading lies about him." "I haven't spread any lies. I've shared facts." Paul sighed. "David, listen to me. I don't know what you're trying to accomplish here, but you need to stop. If this goes to court, it's going to get ugly. Family law cases are brutal, and if a judge thinks you've been harassing Brian, you could lose." "Lose what?" "Your credibility. Your case. Maybe even the property, if Brian can prove you're using it as a weapon against him." I was quiet for a long time. "David, I'll think about it." "Don't think. Stop. Whatever you're doing, stop. Now." He hung up. I put the phone down and stared out the window. Paul was right. I was playing a dangerous game. If Brian sued, if this went public, it could backfire. I could lose control of the situation. But I couldn't stop now. I was too close. I opened my laptop and pulled up the security footage again. I scrolled through the clips looking for something specific, and then I found it. A conversation between Brian and Vanessa from 3 months ago. They were sitting on the couch, talking in low voices. I turned up the volume. Brian: "What if we just tell him the truth? Come clean?" Vanessa: "Are you kidding? He'd lose his mind." Brian: "Maybe, but at least we'd be honest." Vanessa: "Brian, we're past honest. We've been using this place for over a year. If we tell him now, he'll know we've been lying the whole time." Brian: "So what do we do?" Vanessa: "We keep going, and we don't get caught." I saved the clip, then I sent it to Paul. Subject line: evidence. Body: "This is what I'm dealing with. Let me know if you still think I should stop." He called me 10 minutes later. "Where did you get this?" Security cameras. Jesus, David. "Did you watch it?" Yes, I watched it. And I'll admit it's damning. But it doesn't change anything. If you keep pushing, Brian's going to push back. And this is going to get messy. It's already messy. Then don't make it worse. I hung up. I spent the rest of the day thinking. Paul was right. I was crossing lines. And if I kept going, I'd end up in a courtroom, explaining myself to a judge who might not see things the way I did. But I couldn't let this go. Not yet. Because Brian still didn't understand. He thought this was about money, about property, about me being petty. But it wasn't. It was about Emma. About the fact that he'd erased her. About the fact that he'd taken the one thing that was hers and turned it into his. And I needed him to feel that. I needed him to lose something the way I'd lost her. I opened my laptop and started planning the final step. I spent the next week preparing. Not legally. I'd already done everything I could on that front. This was something else. This was personal. I started by going through every piece of footage I had. 18 months of recordings, hundreds of hours. I watched it all again, this time with a different lens. I wasn't looking for evidence anymore. I was looking for moments, specific moments that would hit the hardest. I found them. A clip from a year ago. Brian and Vanessa laughing on the deck, toasting each other. The caption on Vanessa's Instagram post from that day: "Living our best life." Another clip from 8 months ago. Brian walking through Emma's bedroom, pointing out the improvements to a contractor. His voice casual, unbothered. A third clip from 6 months ago. Vanessa trying on one of Emma's old sweaters, the one with the embroidered hummingbird that Emma had loved. Vanessa posing in front of the mirror, taking photos. I compiled them into a single video. No commentary. No captions. Just the raw footage, time-stamped and labeled. Then I sent it to Brian. No message. No explanation. Just the video. I watched the tracking notification. Delivered. Opened. Then I waited. He called me 20 minutes later. I didn't answer. He called again, and again, and again. I let every call go to voicemail. The voicemail started out angry. "What the hell is this? Why are you doing this?" Then they shifted to defensive. "You're taking this out of context. It's not what it looks like." Then desperate. "Dad, please, just talk to me." I didn't respond. The next day, Vanessa called. I answered. "You're sick," she said. "You know that? You're actually sick." "Did you watch the video?" "Of course I watched it. You sent it to Brian. You wanted us to see it. Then you saw what you did. We didn't do anything wrong. You wore Emma's clothes." A pause. "That was an accident. I didn't know it was hers. You redecorated her room. We were trying to make it usable. It was just sitting there. You erased her. We didn't erase her. God, you're so dramatic. We were just..." Vanessa was silent for a long moment. Then she said, "You're never going to forgive us, are you?" "No." "Then what do you want? What's the end game here?" "I want you to understand what you did." "We do understand. We made a mistake. We've apologized." "No, you don't. You think this is about the house. It's not?" "Then what is it about?" "It's about the fact that you didn't care. You saw an opportunity and you took it. You didn't think about Emma. You didn't think about me. You just thought about yourselves. That's not fair, isn't it?" She hung up. I put the phone down and went back to work. Over the next few days, I started seeing the effects. Brian's social media went quiet. No new posts, no updates. Just silence. Vanessa's accounts did the same. I checked their friends' pages. There were whispers, vague posts about disappointment and betrayal, comments that had been deleted, conversations that had been taken private. The social circle that Brian and Vanessa had built was starting to fracture, and I hadn't done anything. I'd just shown people the truth. Then, 4 days after I sent the video, something happened. Brian showed up at my condo. It was late, almost midnight. I was in bed, half asleep, when the buzzer rang. I ignored it. It rang again and again. I got up and checked the video intercom. Brian was standing in the lobby, looking up at the camera. His face was pale. His eyes were red. He pressed the buzzer again. I picked up the intercom. "Go home, Brian." "Dad, please, I need to talk to you." "There's nothing to talk about. Please, just let me come up. 5 minutes. That's all I'm asking." I stared at the screen. He looked broken, desperate. I shouldn't have let him up. But I did. I pressed the button to unlock the door and waited by my apartment. A minute later, there was a knock. I opened it. Brian was standing in the hallway, hands shoved in his pockets, shoulders hunched. "Come in," I said. He walked inside. I closed the door and gestured to the couch. He sat down. I stayed standing. "What do you want?" I asked. "I don't know," he said. I needed to see you." "Why?" "Because I don't know what else to do." I crossed my arms. "That's not my problem." "Dad, I'm drowning. I lost my job. Vanessa and I are barely speaking. We're 3 months behind on rent. I've got creditors calling me every day, and now everyone we know thinks I'm some kind of monster." "You brought this on yourself." I know I screwed up. I know I hurt you. But I don't know how to fix it." "You can't." He looked up at me. "What do you mean?" "I mean there's nothing you can do to fix this. You can't undo what you did. You can't give Emma back her space. You can't erase the last 18 months. "So what, you're just going to hate me forever?" "I don't hate you." "Then what do you feel?" I thought about that. "Disappointment." He flinched. "That's worse." "Yeah, it is." He looked down at his hands. "I don't know what you want me to say. I've apologized. I've admitted I was wrong. What else is there?" "Nothing. That's the point." We sat in silence for a long time. Then Brian said, "Do you remember when Emma died?" I didn't respond. "You gave that speech at the funeral," he continued. "You talked about how much she meant to you, how proud you were of her, how she was the best thing you'd ever done." I looked away. "And I remember thinking," Brian said, his voice breaking, "that you'd never say that about me, that I'd never be good enough, that I'd always be the screw-up." "Brian." "And I think part of me wanted to prove you wrong. I wanted to show you that I could take care of something important, that I could be responsible. So when the house was just sitting there, empty, I thought maybe this was my chance. Maybe if I took care of it, if I kept it alive, you'd see me differently." I stared at him. "So you did this for me?" "No, I did it for myself. But I thought it might make you proud." "By lying to me? By erasing your sister?" "I wasn't trying to erase her. I was trying to..." "To what? Replace her?" His face crumpled. "No, God, no. I didn't know what else to do. I didn't know how to grieve. I didn't know how to talk to you. You shut everyone out after she died. You stopped being my dad. You stopped being anything." "That's not an excuse." "I know, but it's the truth." I walked to the window and looked out at the city. The lights stretched out forever, cold and distant. "You want to know why I'm disappointed?" I said. "It's not because you used the house. It's because you didn't ask. You saw something you wanted, and you took it, and you convinced yourself it was okay because I wasn't using it. But it was never about whether I was using it. It was about the fact that it was Emma's, and you didn't care enough to ask." Brian didn't say anything. "You want me to forgive you?" I continued. "Fine, I forgive you, but that doesn't mean I trust you, and it doesn't mean we go back to the way things were. Because you proved something to me, Brian. You proved that when it matters, you'll choose yourself over everyone else. That's not fair. It's the truth." He stood up. "So that's it? You're just going to cut me out of your life?" "I'm not cutting you out. I'm setting boundaries. There's a difference. It doesn't feel like a difference. That's because you're used to getting what you want." He stared at me for a long moment. Then he turned and walked to the door. He stopped with his hand on the knob. "For what it's worth," he said, "I am sorry. Not because I got caught, because I hurt you, and because I hurt Emma's memory. I didn't see it before, but I see it now." I didn't respond. He opened the door and left. I stood by the window for a long time after he was gone, staring out at the lights. Then I went back to bed.